Hey guys, welcome back to DC Extra. My name is Chris. Today we're going to be ranking the Arrowverse in a tier list. Alrighty, so this is something I've wanted to do for a while. And now that the Arrowverse has officially ended with The Flash Season 9, now I think it's a good time to actually do this. So what's going to be in this video is put simply a tier list. But there's a few things that I want to make clear before I get into it. First of all, this only pertains to the shows that are set on Earth Prime of the Arrowverse. So that in extension means Black Lightning is also included, but things like Stargirl, Superman and Lois are not, because they are on different Earths, although as well published by the CW. And if you want to see a video where I include those later on, as well as maybe some other DC shows animated or otherwise, I can do that also. But because I'm going season by season in this video, I think it's better to just leave it as the Arrowverse. Alright, so everything's ordered in alphabetical order here, as you can see, and I'm going to be ranking them as such. So starting with Arrow Season 1 here. This season was not necessarily my favourite, but it's quite high up in the Arrow seasons. So I think I'm going to put that as an A tier. And directly followed by Season 2, this is one of my favourites of the entire Arrowverse. So that is just going to go straight S tier. Now Arrow Season 3. It is worse than Season 1, but I don't think it's terrible. A lot of people on social media and otherwise seem to hate on it, but I quite like it. Just the whole team that is in that series. So this, while worse than these two, is still pretty good, and I'm going to put it in A tier. Now Season 4, I didn't like that as much, but it's still pretty solid. So that's going in B tier. Now Arrow Season 5, that is Prometheus main villain, and just the acting throughout this season was phenomenal. I didn't like the new team initially as much as the old team, so it took a bit of getting used to, but for the most part it was really good, and I think I'm going to put that high in the A tier. In fact, you know what? It's going in S tier, just below Season 2. Now Season 6, again, pretty solid. Not as good as Season 5, but still a solid A tier, and probably just after Season 1. So just in between those two. And I'm going to be ranking them horizontally also. Alright, so Season 7, that starts with Oliver in prison. And I really liked exploring this actually. It was really interesting. And then towards the end of the season where we had Amiko, his half-sister, that was really good also. So in terms of my ranking, I'm inclined to say A tier somewhere, but I don't know where. It's probably in between Season 6 and 3. So that seems like a pretty solid position. Now Season 8, this is obviously kind of a memorial season, you could say. And it was just paying respect to the previous seasons. And I like the way they did this. Honestly, the ending of Season 7 felt like a pretty good ending as well. But the ending that they gave us in Season 8 was really good also. In terms of like leading up to a main villain and storyline, it probably wasn't the best for that. But each episode I enjoyed, and for that reason, it's going in A tier, just on the lower end of it. And as you can tell, I really like Arrow. Now moving on to Batwoman. Batwoman started off strong with Season 1. I really enjoyed this first season, and we had the beginning of the season before Crisis, and then the second half after Crisis on Infinite Earths. So I really liked how they incorporated that into it with two versions of Beth then in the season. But then the show kind of dipped with Season 2 and 3. And I feel like that was in part due to them having to recast Batwoman. Or not even recast, it was just a completely separate Batwoman. But, you know what, it's still a decent series. So Season 1, I'm going to put A tier. And that's probably in between these two seasons. So in between Seasons 3 and 8. Now Season 2, that is going to have to be B tier. I'm sorry, but yeah. I just didn't like how she had to get recast. And that is by no fault of anyone that made this series. But it it just didn't sit right with me. And then as for season 3, I think it was a bit better than season 2. This actually had Poison Ivy and I guess their version of the Joker, which I quite liked. So I think that is a bit better than season 2. And in comparison to Arrow season 4, I think it might be... No, I think it's going to have to be slightly lower than it. Now as for Black Lightning, I've only watched this once, so I don't exactly memorize everything that happens in each of the seasons as well as I do with all the other series. But for me, this felt like almost all 4 seasons were almost just one complete storyline. Whereas all the other shows kind of focus on one main villain for each season. Whereas this one kind of had one main villain for the whole season. That being said, I'm still going to rank them, but they are just going to be very closely together. So season 1, this obviously introduced the characters, and I quite liked this first season. It showed the addition of his daughter Anissa getting powers, and how they were able to deal with that, and how she actually kept it a secret first. I like that component of it as well. So this season is going to go A tier, and probably about the middle of A tier. Season 2, we ended up seeing that his other daughter Jennifer got powers. I believe that was actually happened at the very end of season 1. But regardless, we followed it mainly throughout season 2. And again, it kind of focused on the same main villain. So it's going to be very close to this one. Although I liked it a bit less. So it's probably going to go down here just below Batwoman. Now season 3 was a bit different, as they kind of switched settings or switched the way they were doing things, with Jefferson and pretty much his whole family locked up by the ASA. And then pretty much Anissa had to go against this government authority and be a vigilante without them knowing, as because before that they knew about her identity. Now, I didn't like it as much, but there were parts I still liked about it. So it's going to go B tier, but fairly high up there. So far so good, nothing being below B tier. Although I have a feeling we're going to get somewhere down there. Season 4, I like the way they wrapped things up there. But for the beginning of it, it was just kind of slow. So I'm going to put that in B tier, and at the lower half of it is that. Now Constantine, look, it was a decent show, but it had one season. It kind of speaks for itself how good it was, because yeah, it just wasn't my favorite. There were certain interesting bits about it, and it was a good introduction to the character, but honestly, I preferred Constantine in Legends and Arrow. So yeah, so much for the everything above B. This is going C. And it might honestly go D later on. We'll see how we get with the other ones. Now onto The Flash. This started off strong, as most shows do, and then kind of dipped in quality. So, season 1, that's straight A tier, and at the very top of it. Season 2, S tier, 100%. And yeah, it rivals Arrow season 2 as one of the best shows in the entire Arrowverse. Season 3 had Savitar, and I didn't like that as much as the first 2 seasons, but it was still pretty solid. And in terms of where exactly in A tier this would go, that's a great question, actually. It probably goes just below season 3 of Arrow for me. And as for season 4 with DeVoe, that was again a little bit of a step down, but still pretty solid, so it's going just next to it. Season 5, I'd say this is pretty much the first point where we had a significant step down, but I did really like the introduction of Nora and how they explored her character. So that while it's going to be quite a bit lower, it's still going to be in A tier, and it's probably going to be just below Batwoman season 1. As for season 6, again, this is where we went down quite low. This, I believe, focused on preparing for Crisis in the first half, and then the second half was the Mirror Master storyline. And yeah, I didn't enjoy that as much as the previous seasons, so that's definitely going in B tier. As for where, it's probably going to have to be... it's going to go in between the Batwoman seasons. Because it was still interesting, but yeah, it didn't intrigue me as much as the previous ones. Season 7, I didn't mind certain parts of this one. Because there were 2 storylines in this season, I believe. There was the Forces storyline and the Bloodworks storyline. Unless I'm mixing it up with the previous season. All these last ones kind of merged together in my head. And I did enjoy the Forces storyline. Although it was kind of weird how there were all these negative forces now. And they actually had physical bodies. I know Nora's often had that, but it's only really been in the Speed Force. So, again, it's going to be a step down from Season 6. Unfortunately. Yeah, it's probably going to go at the end of B tier. Season 7, rather Season 8. That was pretty decent start with Armageddon storyline. And the kind of crossover they did. But the rest of the season was quite weak. And although they had a version of Reverse Flash as the character, I don't like the way he kind of encompassed all the negative forces. I preferred him just to be a speedster villain. That is going C tier. Probably above Constantine, but C tier. Season 9 started off weak and then grew a bit stronger. The Red Death storyline, not the best. Did like how they incorporated Batwoman into it. However, then the second part of the storyline, where it focused on Cobalt Blue, and honestly just ending up the entire Arrowverse and the show, was better than the first half. There were weak episodes, there were strong episodes. Wasn't my favourite season by a long shot. And it is still going to go in B tier, but further up than Season 6 and 7. So just going to go between Arrow Season 4 and Batwoman Season 3. Now, Legends of Tomorrow. This one I'm going to have a tough time remembering, so bear with me. Season 1, that focused on the team going for Vandal Savage. Strong start. I won't say it's the best one out of them. I did enjoy Seasons 2 and 3 a lot. But this is still going to go A tier. Just probably halfway in between A tier. Just at about the same point as Flash Season 4. And then Season 2, that was against the Legion of Doom, which I liked quite a bit more. So that is going to go above these Flash seasons. But still below Arrow Season 4, I believe that is. No, 3. Yeah, so it's around about the same as Arrow Season 3. That seems right. To me, at least. Now, Season 3. I believe that was focusing on Malice. And we got introduced to all the totems here. And I quite enjoyed this. Probably not as much as Season 2, but still more than Season 1. So that is going to probably pop right in the middle of these 2 seasons. A lot of these, like horizontal things, you don't have to take as religion, but it is just a rough idea. Now here's where it gets hard for me to remember. Season 4. That focused on... Now here's where it gets a bit hard for me to remember. Season 4, I believe that focused on the anachronisms after the Legends defeated Malice in Season 3. They had to kind of deal with the ramifications they caused to the timeline, as is pretty much the entire plot of the show, but this one especially. Now it's not as strong as the first few seasons, and it's probably going to jump all the way down to B tier, but still pretty high up there. Now, it's not as strong as Arrow Season 4, I don't think, but stronger than The Flash Season 9. So now Season 5, that focused on the Loom of Fate, and how the Fates ended up rewriting the world, and how the Legends eventually fixed that. Pretty interesting concepts, and for that I would say it is stronger than Season 4, but only slightly, so it's just going to go right next to it. So Season 6 actually saw a big shift, with more of a magical kind of focus on the kind of villains, to a more alien focus. And I don't think it worked in their favour. So it is going to unfortunately be the third C tier show. Still stronger than Constantine though. Now Season 7, I'm a bit sour on the ending, because they planned for it to be another season, but it did get cancelled unfortunately. Although the ending was still decent, it could have been better. That is of no fault of the show creators. And I believe it's probably better than season 6, but only slightly, so it is going to go around here. Now, Supergirl, probably my third favorite Arrowverse show. And once again, seasons 1 through 3 are probably the strongest in my books. Season 1 focused on Kara becoming Supergirl and then fighting her Aunt Astra and Uncle, as well as all the other Kryptonian fugitives from Krypton. So season 1, A tier definitely. As for where in A tier, I'm going to put it at around Flash season 3. Now season 2, it's probably around the same quality, and I'm just going to put them right next to each other. Season 3, absolutely loved it, 100% S tier. As for where in S tier, that is going to go Flash season 2. This is Arrow season 5, probably better than Arrow season 5 in my opinion. Yeah, I feel like these 3 are just top tier seasons throughout the entire series, and they're going to be right next to each other. So season 4, again, this is a bit of a controversial one. A lot of people love this, but for me personally, I did not. Some things just didn't strike with me immediately, and I am currently doing a Supergirl rewatch, so I may change my mind on that one. I'm going to have to rank this quite a bit lower than the first 3 seasons. And in case you have forgotten, this is the one that focused on Agent Liberty and Lex Luthor as main villains. It's probably going to be B tier. It's high in B tier, probably around the same as Black Lightning and Arrow, but not quite that high. So as for season 5, again, quite a step down from the previous few, and I did not enjoy how they antagonized Lena. She was one of my favorite characters in the earlier seasons, and seeing her become the villain just was heartbreaking to me. So this is going to go quite a bit lower, probably around the same place as Flash season 5, I believe that is. Yeah, season 5. And as for season 6, final season of Supergirl, I really liked how they ended it, but as for the rest of the season, it was kind of weak. Stronger than season 6, I believe. So it is going to go around the same place as Arrow season 9. Rather, that's Flash season 9. Arrow did not have a season 9. Now, as for 2 final things to include, the Ray and Vixen. These are both shorts, and they had a few seasons each, I believe, 2 in each. But I've comprised them into just 1 entry per, because there were also movie releases for each of these shows. That was just basically comprised of the whole show squished together into about an hour. These shows were pretty good, and honestly underrated, because I've heard nothing about them until I actually watched them. They're not the strongest, just because of the limited runtime they have. So the Ray, it was probably weaker than Vixen, so that's going to go C tier, but probably high up in C tier. As for Vixen, this was a lot better, because it actually incorporated other characters throughout the Arrowverse, such as Flash and Green Arrow, as you can see in the picture there. And it actually made a bit more sense in continuity, as this one kind of confused me a little bit from the beginning. So this is going to be higher, probably around the same point as the final Supergirl and Flash seasons. Now that is my rating. As you can probably see, there's a lot of A tiers. And plain and simply, that is because I love the Arrowverse. It is one of my all-time favorite universes in all of media, comic books or otherwise. I just love it to pieces. I've watched it like 5 times each show. Probably more for Flash and Arrow. As for some of the other ones, such as Constantine, Black Lightning, and The Ray and Vixen, I've only watched those 1 or 2 times. However, they're still solid. And you know what? In fact, I think I'm going to have to put Constantine in D tier just so we have a bit of variety and he looks a bit nicer. But that is pretty much my overall rating of the Arrowverse. Let me know your Arrowverse ratings down below in the comments. And actually, in the description below is going to be a link to where you can also use this template to create your own tier list. And if you feel like, please do share it in the comments below. I will take a look at them and give you my opinions on them. But anyway, I hope you did enjoy this video. If you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more content like this. But until next time, this has been Chris, and I'll be seeing you.